Jai Ho. Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Ganaganatam Samsaradava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Praptasya Kalyanam Gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Praptasya Kalyanam Gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vaditramadhyam Manasurasena Mahaprabhu Gita Vaditramadhyam Romanchakam Pasru Tarangavajo Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shingaratanama Niramarjanado Shri Vigrahara Nityanana Shingaratanama Niramarjanado Juktasya Bhaktamsa Niyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Satana Triptan Hari Bhakta Sangam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Satana Triptan Kritvaiva Truptim Bhajato Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrindam Shiradikama Dabayara Para Madhurya Leela Gunarupa Namna Shiradikama Pratikshana Dhanalupasya Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam. Ne kunjayuno ratikeli sidhai jayali virjukti apekshaniya. Ne kunjayuno ratikeli sidhai jayali virjukti tatrati daksha Ativalavasya Bande Gurashi Charanarvindam. Sakchadharitena Shamasta Shashre Ruktastathava Yataiva Sadhavi Sakyadari Sashri Kintu Pravarja Priya Eva Tasya Bande Gurashi Charanarvindam. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasado Yasya prasada nagati kutapi. Yasya prasada Yasya prasada Jayam stuvam tasya yasatrin sandhyam Vande Gurashi Charanarvindam. Yasatrin sandhyam Vande Gurashi Charanarvindam. Vande Gurashi Charanarvindam. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitina Mine Nama Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachatare Shata Rine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Bol. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram. Hare Nama, Krishna Jadavaya Nama, Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha. Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan, Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan, Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita, Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita, Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhattaraguna, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Ram, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Pramanande. Jai Vishwapara Paramahansa Prabhajakacharya Sutara Sarasishimar. His divine grace, Abhacharvina Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON Pratishta Viviti Samstapakacharya Vaishnava Siramani Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patiti Udhara ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatra Gunath Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Sat Goswami Prabhu ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ji ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Prem se Koho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. जय परम दयाल श्री नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय। प्रेम नाम संकीर्तन एक जनक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम श्री सच्चिदानंद स्मरण गौरंग श्री चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि मावरनाय अवतार की जय। गोलोकेर प्रमधान हरिनाम संकीर्तन जग की जय। जुग धर्म हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय। बृहत निदांग ट्रांसलेंटल बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सेवा की जय। शिशु राधा कृष्ण गोप गुप्ना राधा कुंद श्याम कुंड गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय। शिवर जबिम वृंदावन मथुर धाम की जय। तेलोशिव शिशु राधा नील माधव की जय। श्री श्री मायापुर नवद्वीप एक चक्र धाम की जय। परम करुणा श्री गौर निताय की जय। श्री पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। श्री श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी बलदेव प्रभु स्मस्पदेवी सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय। भक्ति सर्व विघ्न विनाशन कृष्ण श्रृंगरे भगवान की जय। राम लक्ष्मण भक्त हनुमान जी की जय। गंगा माय जमुना माय की जय। तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री मथुरा रानी की जय। समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय। निताय गौरी प्रमानंदी। All glories to the assembly bodies. All glories to the assembly bodies. All glories to the assembly bodies. All glories, glories to Shri Guru Shri Gauranga.
Namaste Narashinhaya Prahlada Lada Daine Hiranyakashipurvakshaha Shilatankana kalaye Ito na singha parato na singha Yato yato yamitato na singha Bahir na singha hriday na singha Narasingha mardim sharanam prapadye Tavakara kamalavare nakam Adbhuta singham Dalita hiranyakashipu Tano bringam Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Lakshmi Narasingha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha. Jaya Narsingha Dev, Jaya Narsingha Dev, Narsingha Dev, Jaya Narsingha Dev. Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj. Nrsingadev Bhagavan ki Jai, Prahlad Maharaj ki Jai, Go Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha Radha Krishna Seva Pavo E Abhilashi Radha Krishna Seva Pavo E Abhilashi যে তোমার শরণ লয় তারা বঞ্চা পূর্ণ হয় কৃপা वृंदावन वासी मोराए अभिलाष बिलास कुंज दियो वास नयने हरि वो सदा जुगल रूपरासी ए निवेदना धारो साखीर अनुगाता कोरो सेवा अधिकारा दिए कोरो निज दासी दीना कृष्णा दासे कोई ए जीना मोरा होए श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा जीना भासी श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा जीना भासी यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्माहत्यधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्माहत्यधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्माहत्यधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्णा महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी नित्य गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौरा हरि बोल नित्य गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्य गौरा हरि बोल। श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की जय।
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Krishna Prabhu Jaito Bhartanam Bhajanam Bhavama Tavatman Vatanam Shri Adari Gachantika Vitaranam Siyavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivatanam Siparam Vajaswaram Sarvatmasnaparam Vijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Namakari Bauta Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pitanya Mita Shmarne Nakala Ita Viti Kavati Daivam Idusam Ramatam
yourself lower than the straw in the street. What makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya 6,000 Ki Jai. Ma Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tanam. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pachani Nirvishesa Srimati Vaskati Dastan. To blaspheme the devotees dedicated their lives to propagating the holy names of the Lord. To consider the names of demigods like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent names of Lord Vishnu. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literature in pursuance of the Vedic version. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna as imagination. To give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in Vedas as fruitive activities or karma kanda. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name. To not have complete faith in chanting the holy name and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success, Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vanchakalpatarabhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Vaishnava Thakur Ki Jai. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gurvani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Dasatane. Srimad Bhagavatam Grantharaja Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Janmad Yasya Yato Nivayad Itaradas Charte Suavigya Swarat Tene Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye Muyanti Yatsurayaha Tejo Varimridam Yata Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Misha Damna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dimahi. O my Lord, Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes, of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations. And he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion. as one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen on fire and land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature, appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Dharma Projita Kaitravatra Paramo Nirmatsanam Satam Vedyam Vastavam Atra Vastu Shivadam Tapatrayon Mulanam Shrimad Bhagavate Mahamani Krite Kim Vaparir Ishwaraha Sadyo Hridi Avarudyate Tra Kriti Bihi Sususabhistakshanat. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated. This Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam Sukhamukad amrita dravya samyutam Pibata bhagavatam rasamalayam Muhur aho raska bhuvibhavakaha. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desired tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful. Although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Shinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hiryantak Stohir Bhadrani Vidunati Srihit Satam. To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures, or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita, is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as a best-wishing friend and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. Astapresu abhatresu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati utamasloke bhaktir bhavati naistaki. In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. Tadarajastamo bhava kamalobhadayaschaye cheta etaranabhidam stitvam sattve prasidhati. By development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance, and thus material lust and avarice are diminished. Evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti yogataha bhagavad tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. When these impurities are wiped away, the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness, becomes enlivened by devotional service, and understands the science of God perfectly. Vidyate hridaya grantis Chidyante Sarvasamsaya Shiyante Chasya Karmani Drista Evat Manishware. Thus Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection and enables one to come at once to the stage of a samsayam samagram, understanding of the Supreme Absolute Truth Personality of Godhead. Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness can one understand the science of Krishna. Shishi Guru Vastuka prayers ki jai. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it. So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master is an ocean of auspicious qualities. Chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because he's relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind. Sometimes his hair stands on end. He feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food. Analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavat Prasada, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava, and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in assisting the gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavana. I offer my most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servitor of the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Shri Hare Krishna. Why, the mercy of the spiritual master receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, this is acknowledged by all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Okay. Therefore, I should Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master. At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master. Shri Brahma Samhita ki jai. Ishwara Pranama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadiraja Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Chintamani Prakadasatma Sukalpa Vriksha Lakshavrite Susurabir Abhibhalayantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambrama Sevyamanam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Venam Kranantam Aravinda Dalayataksam Parhabatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Visesa Sobam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kalasad Vanavayamansi Ratnam Ganam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shyamam Tribanga Lalita Niyata Prakasam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalandriya Vrittimanti Pashyanti Panti Kalayanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Ajutam Anadim Ananta Rupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vede Sudurlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakto Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastu Koti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Ayoratapi Manaso Munipungamanam Sobhyasti Yat Prapadasim Yavichintya Tatve Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ekop Yasora Chaitam Jagadanda Kotim Yat Chaktirasti Jagadanda Chaya Yadanta Andantarasta Paramanu Chayantarastam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Bhava Bhavita Diyo Yat Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manajasta Taiva Samprapya Rupa Samprapya Rupa Mahima Nayana Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhushaha Suktayal Yameva Nigama Pratitaistuvanti Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 5, Text 25. Tamasad apibhutadir vikurvanad abunnabha tasya matra guna sabdo lingam yadrastidristyayo. Translation: from the darkness of false ego, the first of the five elements, namely the sky, is generated. Its subtle form is the quality of sound, exactly as the seer is in relationship with the seen. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The five elements, namely sky, air, fire, water, and earth, are all but different qualities of the darkness of false ego. This means that the false ego, in the sum total form of Mahatattva, is generated from the marginal potency of the Lord. And due to this false ego of lording it over the material creation, ingredients are generated for the false enjoyment of the living being. The living being is practically the dominating factor over the material elements as the enjoyer, though the background is the Supreme Lord. Factually, save and except for the Lord, no one can be called the enjoyer, but the living entity falsely desires to become the enjoyer. This is the origin of false ego. When the bewildered living being desires this, the shadow elements are generated by the will of the Lord, and the living entities are allowed to run after them as after a phantasmagoria. It is said that first the Tanmantra sound is created, and then the sky, and in this verse, and then the sky, and in this verse it is confirmed that actually it is so. But sound is the subtle form of the sky, and the distinction is like that between the seer and the seen. The sound is the representation of the actual object, as the sound produced speaking of the object gives an idea of the description of the object. Therefore, sound is the subtle characteristic of the object. Similarly, sound representation of the Lord in terms of his characteristics is the complete form of the Lord, as was seen by Vasudeva and Maharaj Dasaratha, the fathers of Lord Krishna and Lord Rama. The sound representation of the Lord is non-different from the Lord himself, because the Lord and his representation as sound are absolute knowledge. Lord Chaitanya has instructed us that in the holy name of the Lord, as sound representation of the Lord, all the potencies of the Lord are invested. Thus, one can immediately enjoy the association of the Lord by the pure vibration of the sound representation of his holy name, and the concept of the Lord is immediately manifested before the pure devotee. A pure devotee, therefore, is not aloof from the Lord even for a moment. The holy name of the Lord, as represented in the Shastras, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, may therefore be constantly chanted by the devotee aspiring to be constantly in touch with the Supreme Lord. One who is thus able to associate with the Lord is sure to be delivered from the darkness of the created world, which is a product of false ego. Tamasima Jyotirgama. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. From the darkness of false ego, the first of the five elements, namely the sky, is generated. Its subtle form is the quality of sound, exactly as the seer is in relationship with the seen. So this is a very, again, profound purport and verse, and to understand this requires a lot of surrender to the Lord. Unless one is completely surrendered to the Lord and regularly hearing Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, one does not have the capability of understanding these verses, and especially the purports. We may say, well, I already read this. That doesn't mean anything. I already read this. Well, I got my Bhakti Shastri course, and I passed my Bhakti Vaibhav course, and we already studied the Bhagavatam, the first 6 cantos. That doesn't mean anything. It means something, but not much. How much of it do you actually remember? Right? And how much of it can you explain in depth, as Prabhupada is explaining here? So we have to constantly repeat and go over these things. Otherwise, we may think we know it, but when it comes to actually explaining it to someone, we get lost in a basically a jungle of concepts that's sort of mixed in our brain. You know. So it says Namachintamani Krishnas Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Punak Sudho Nam Nitya Mukto Binatvam Namanamino. This is a very important verse from the Padma Purana. And it says, the holy name of Krishna is transcendently blissful. It bestows all spiritual benedictions. For it is Krishna himself, the reservoir of all pleasure. Krishna's name is complete, and it is the form of all transcendental mellows. It is not a material name under any condition, and it is no less powerful than Krishna himself. Since Krishna's name is not contaminated by material qualities, and there is no question of its being involved with Maya, Krishna's name is always liberated and spiritual. It is never conditioned by the laws of material nature. This is because the name of Krishna and Krishna himself are identical. And this is a very profound verse. The whole Padma Purana is profound. It's a discussion between Lord Shiva and Parvati. And she's questioning him, asking all these amazing questions, and he's giving all these amazing answers. It's quite a Purana. And Prabhupada quotes from it very often, different important verses. But this one is especially important because when it says, Binat Mam Namanamina, and that means this is because the name of Krishna and Krishna himself are identical. And then when it says, Purna Sudho Nitya Mukto, that means that it is not a material name under any condition, and it is no less powerful than Krishna himself. Since Krishna's name is not contaminated by the material qualities, and there is no question of its being involved with Maya. So when we're chanting Hare Krishna, we might not realize this, but that's why we're reading the description in the Padma Purana. We're directly associating with Krishna right away, even though we're not really qualified, right? Especially in the beginning. But simply repeating the names of Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Not only we're being purified, but we're directly associating with the Lord, and the entire potency of the Lord is in his holy name. When we begin to realize these things, we understand this is the greatest benediction. Golokera Ramadana Harinama Sankirtana. This holy name descended from the spiritual world by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Ratina Janmilo Kenintai. Samsara Bisanale. Diba Nisa Hiajwale. Juraite Na Koino Upai. The treasure of love of God has descended from the spiritual world of Goloka, Vrindavana, appearing in this world as the Sankirtan movement of the chanting of Lord Hari's holy names. Why am I not attached to it? Day and night I burn from the poison of material existence, but still I refuse to take the antidote. The antidote means the cure for the disease. What is the disease? The disease is to dominate and enjoy the material world. And this verse explains how the material world is simply a whole illusory phantasmagoria for the living entity to try and enjoy independent of Krishna. And therefore, all the paraphernalias for enjoyment are created because of tamas, or because of the false ego. And the epitome of this is Costco, Walmart, Fred Meyer, and all these big department stores where you can go in and find a huge number of paraphernalia that are meant for sense gratification. almost all of them are meant for sense gratification. Even the food. You have, like I said, 100 different types of cereals, breakfast cereals. They're all junk. Even though they say, oh, fortified with vitamin A and vitamin E and vitamin B1 and B2 and B6 and B12 and B this, but it's all nonsense. If you just open up the box of the breakfast cereal and then open the inside wrapper of it and smell it, it smells like a pharmacy. And sometimes they try and mask that pharmacy smell by putting in these artificial perfumes, or they call it, they say natural flavorings, and artificial flavorings, but it's all artificial. So this is the worst junk food a child could eat, but yet the parents go to Costco and they buy these gigantic boxes that last 1 year of these nonsense cereals. And because it's easy, all you do is throw it into the bowl, add some milk, and the kid eats it. Right? They don't have to cook anything. It's real easy. And they're promising you all these vitamins and minerals. But actually, it's junk. It's poisonous, actually. Everything made for kids are extremely poisonous. Like bubble gum and candies, like Halloween candies. They're all poisonous. And that's why, kids have sinus problems, they get earaches, and they get tummy aches, and they get colitis, and they get constipated, and then they get liquid stools, and they get sniffles, because they're eating junk. And the cosmetics for kids, like bubble bath, is completely poisonous. All the oils they use, the so-called essential oils they use, are all synthetic. But yet the parents buy it because it's pink, or it's red, or it's yellow, And then the worst of all is the M&Ms, M&M candy. They're all different colors. This is complete nonsense. But yet the parents are feeding this junk to their kids, and the kids are getting sick by eating it. They're surrounded by all these toxic things. Is anyone explaining this? No. And I often go to people's houses to do programs, and I see that gigantic box, 1 year's supply of junk cereal in the house, right? And they think they did the right thing, and Costco is supplying all these things, right? So, and they call it, natural or organic this or organic that. It's a bunch of organic nonsense. And but we, go for it, and we're like the lemmings. A lemming is something like it's a type of bird that doesn't fly that much. And if one lemming goes over a cliff, all the other lemmings follow it. It's a phenomenon in nature. It's something strange, but it's actually factual. So people have become lemmings. Look at that, lemming, Lemming. One lemming buys that big box of cereal, and then everyone says, "Oh, where did you get that?" "I got it at Costco." It's a whole year's supply. "Oh, that's really convenient. I have to go get it also." And in this way, Costco sells hundreds and thousands of boxes of this poison for kids. And then all the candies, you go on Halloween, you go into Safeway or Fred Meyer or QFC or any of the stores, and you'll see, a long array of poisonous candies. And they buy it. They buy it like crazy, right? And then kids go trick-or-treating, and they get 1 year's supply of junk poison. And they put it under their bed, and every day they eat some of it. And the parents don't realize they're actually poisoning their kid, right, by eating all the junk. And they have artificial flavors, artificial colors, everything artificial in it, right? So what does it say, Lemming?
Lemming is a small rodent. It's a rodent.
Okay.
Usually found near the Arctic and tundra talking about rats, mice, hamsters, etc. In the popular culture, a long-standing myth holds that they jump off the cliffs and commit mass suicide.
Myth.
You can say it's a myth.
Okay. Well, maybe it is. I don't know. Okay. So this is the sad state of modern food industry. You know. So, therefore, this verse from the Padma Purana is extremely important. Then there's another verse from the Padma Purana. Nama aparada yukta nam namanyeva harantyagam abhishranti payuktani tanyevarta karani cha. The chanting of Hare Krishna is recommended for persons who commit offenses, because if they continue chanting, they will gradually chant offenselessly. Even if in the beginning one chants with offenses, one will become free from such offenses by chanting again and again. So I had a friend of mine who used to be a GBC guru with a big zone, a lot of disciples. And then he left Krishna consciousness. And one day when I met him, I said, Prabhu, are you chanting? He said, yeah, of course I'm chanting. You know, everybody always asks me that. Yeah, I'm chanting, but I'm not like you guys. You know, chanting. I don't chant like that. I only chant once a day, 12 o'clock at night on New Year's Eve, and I only say it once, Hare Krishna. But when I say it that one time, it's more sincere than all the that you guys do. Now, he's a very good speaker and a very, very powerful speaker, right? He always was. You know, he can convince anyone of anything. But this verse completely defeats his nonsense. And let me read it again. The chanting of Hare Krishna is recommended for persons who commit offenses, because if they continue chanting, they will gradually chant offenselessly. Even if in the beginning one chants with offenses, one will become free from such offenses by chanting again and again. So, my dear friend, I actually like him very much, but he's total nonsense. And what he said, you know, with all that, you know, gusto and affirmation and certitude, was complete nonsense. I chant once a day, 12 o'clock at night on New Year's Eve, and it's more serious than all your blah, 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 blah chanting, you know. No. And his once a day, once a year chanting is nonsense. It's not sincere at all, right? Because he's not following Shastra. Okay, so this is what you're faced with in this world. You're always going to be faced with all kinds of people who want to go against the Shastric evidence. And if you don't know what the Shastric evidence is, you'll be convinced by them, because they're very sharp people. They're expert at talking and playing with words and you know, raising their voice and speaking with certitude, and you know, and then making fun of you if you don't believe them. You know, this is all peer pressure, you know, and they're expert in this peer pressure to try and make you deviate from Krishna consciousness. So then again, it says, Namno hi yavati shakti papa nirharane hare tavat kartum na shaknoti patakam pataki naraha. Simply by chanting the holy name of Hari, a sinful man can counteract the reaction of more sins than he's able to commit. So, if you're chanting all the time, imagine all the purification you go through, you see. And eventually you will chant offenselessly, because the more you learn about the holy name and Krishna, the more you become convinced that this is what I should actually be doing. This is what I should teach my kids. This is what I should teach other people, right? It's just like I remember in the 1960s when LSD became popular, the hippies, they were convinced that this little pill can cure all the ills of society. And therefore, they would purposely put it into people's drinks, pour a whole bunch of it into a river so that everyone drinking water from the river will get high on LSD. they were convinced that they're going to change the world with LSD. And these idiot scientists and from Harvard and Yale, like Leary, he was one of the scientists that experimented with LSD early in the 1960s, 1950s and 60s. And he wrote books about it. Timothy Leary, and look him up, Timothy Leary, and he made it very popular. And all the young kids, including myself, all the idiots, we were taking LSD, thinking, this is the solution to all the problems of the world. You see how clever people are, What's it say about Timothy Leary? Is he a muskrat or a lemming or what?
He was an American psychologist and writer known for his strong advocacy for
Psychedelic drugs.
the evaluation for
The psychedelic drug is a mind-altering drug.
he was a clinical psychologist at Harvard University.
Yeah. Big university, right? Top university. Yeah. And, he ruined a whole generation of American kids. Yeah. And he got it. He got the reaction for it also. So we see what's going on in every generation. There's Timothy Learys and people like that that come along with all these false theories and mislead young kids. Like now it's, Black Lives Matter. I remember, like, what was it? Last year, you had all these white kids out on the street from Skyline. Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. Every car I go by, they have a sign, Black Lives Matter. It's complete nonsense, right? It's all racist. Instead of white people are supremacists, the Black Lives Matter is a movement that teaches black racism against white people. So how can that be a good thing? So, and then all these kids are brainwashed to go along with it. Instead of chanting Hare Krishna, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. Repeating it over and over again as people drive by. A bunch of idiots. But this is what's going on today, right? And they're teaching it in the high school. The high school teachers that go out there on the street, and chant Black Lives Matter. You have to teach all the black people, or white people, that they're bad, right? And the teacher is saying that it's white. Is this right, Prabhu? You're a teacher, right? Did you see this in your school?
There is a month called Black Lives Matter. So that month, all teachers have to teach the cruelty of the white people against black people.
Yeah, there you go. It's racism. I mean, let's say some of it is true, right? But there was a whole civil war fought by white people to stop slavery. And, 500,000 American soldiers died on both sides. They were all Americans fighting Americans, right? And they were all white. There were some black soldiers, but there were just a few. There were not that many. Most of the soldiers were all white. And it's the worst war in the whole history of America. No other war have 500,000 American soldiers died. In the Vietnam War, with 4 or 5 years, only 55,000 American soldiers died. World War II, a few million. I don't know. A lot of American soldiers died. But this war was a civil war fought on American territory with Americans fighting Americans, right? And most of them were white. And what was it all about? They were trying to eliminate slavery, right? And then, and what's very interesting, if you see, if you don't study American history, you don't understand all the anomalies, all the nonsense that went on. After the Civil War, in the South, the Democratic Party became very prominent. And they started the Jim Crow laws and discrimination against black people. They hated them. And it was the Democratic Party. It was not the Republican. Lincoln was a member of the Republican Party. And the Democrats were the ones that started the Ku Klux Klan and were suppressing the blacks until the 1960s, when Kennedy and others waged type of psychological and almost physical war against the Democratic white supremacists that were governors and policemen and everything. They controlled the whole society in the South, right? Okay. Anyway, I mean, it's all horrible history, right? And when you hear about it, you realize terrible things happen in this country. So, are the black people right by, advocating Black Lives Matter? Well, you don't heal one mistake by making another mistake, right? Now, one thing about American blacks, many of them are very religious, or they used to be, before rat music came out and all this nonsense that the young kids do. That they were always very religious, and they were church going all the time, and they still are to a certain degree, and they took complete shelter in Jesus, right? Because they were being exploited. But they didn't believe in abortion. They believed in family values. They might have been poor, but still they lived decently, and tried to raise their kids to be good kids. And then something went wrong. And what went wrong was also started by the Democrats. With Lyndon Johnson and the Great New Deal, they started building gigantic housing projects and making ghettos for the blacks in the north, in the northeast and the mid-northwest and places like that. And then they permitted people to easily get divorces, and then black women and black men started purposely getting divorces so that the women, and the more children they would have, the more money they'd get freely from the government. This ruined the black family. Not everybody, but most of it. It ruined them. And it's still going on. And then the white people got into it also, where they purposely get divorces so that the wife gets all this money, and all they have to do is keep having kids every year. Completely ruined the family in America. And along with that, the Christianity that they were following, and Christianity has become much, much less prominent now than it was 50 years ago, 30 years ago, even 20 years ago. All this is happening, not only because of the Democrats, but all this is happening as a shift in culture in America. From the original, America was founded by religious people who wanted to practice their religion without being suppressed. And they tried to be, the first settlers in America were the Puritans. But then eventually, and then all the major colleges like Harvard, Yale, they were all started by religious organizations. And then they metamorphized, they changed into these bastions of atheism. Now, where you send your kid to Yale or Harvard, they end up coming back as perverts. They're well-educated perverts. So this is what's going on right now in this culture. So Lord Chaitanya's solution to this is very simple. You just chant Hare Krishna, take prasadam, chants, and listen to Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and live a simple life without unnecessary accumulation of material things. Actually, to live peacefully, you only need a few good things. Just a few good. And you see this, you still see it in India, like people living on the street, like in Calcutta. You see it very clearly. They have a little chula. They're living on the street, maybe in a pipe or something, that's used for construction. That they'll leave the construction people and the government. They'll leave all that material for like 5 or 6 years, right on the street before they use it. Right. So the poor people, they live in those pipes. The big pipes. I don't know if you've seen it. Have you seen this? But they live there. They raise their family there, right? And it can be in very busy streets with buses coming by, with, spewing out black soot, But yet they live there. They raise their kids there, and they take a bath by turning on the fire hydrant. You seen that? Yeah. And it passed stool and urine right there, right? And they have a little chula, and either they use kerosene or they use coal, or they use wood, and they have this little wooden thing, and they roll their roti on their wooden thing, and they put it on the chula in the tava, and they cook their roti, and then they have some chilies or they have some little bit of sabji, and they're living. They're feeding their kids, right? And the kids are begging every day. They stop the cars. When the cars stop at a red light, they come up, buy sub, kripaki, And this is going on. But you see that they have only a few things, but yet they're living. And the kids are playing, and parents are singing sometimes. And it's just an amazing thing that you actually only need a few things. But if those few things are very good, you're completely satisfied. But yet now, you have Costco. People think, oh, Costco is the new temple. Right? Everybody's got to go to Costco, or Cash and Carry, or Fred Meyer, or all these, Winco. That's another one. All these big stores, and it's full of junk. And all varieties, like I said, 10,000 types of meat, 10,000 types of cereal, 10,000 types of olive oil, this thing, that. And it's just buying things, just grabbing things all around, throwing it into their basket, and the basket comes in, it's full of junk, right? And somehow or other, they're paying for it with food stamps. They're getting the money free from the government to buy all the junk food. It's an incredible thing, and this is explaining all of that, right? This verse and this purport is explaining what's going on right now, right? This false ego, and then all the paraphernalia that are expanded from the false ego. So it says that this means that the false ego, in the sum total form of Mahat Tattva is the whole material energy, right, is generated from the marginal potency of the Lord. That means from us, the marginal potency. And due to this false ego, lording it over the material creation. So the false ego is synonymous with lording it over, the desire to lord it over material nature. Ingredients are generated for the false enjoyment of the living being. That's exactly a description of Costco and Walmart and all these stores. They're all these false, it's a creation of ingredients generated for the false enjoyment of the living being. The living being is practically the dominating factor over the material elements as the enjoyer, though the background is the Supreme Lord. This is a very profound statement, but we see it. If I don't point this out, then you might not realize it, right? That when you go to Costco, you're seeing the expansion of material creation of all kinds of ingredients generated for the false enjoyment of the living being. And that's exactly what it is. The chairs, the tables, the electronic devices, the food, and all the watches and jewelry and everything they're selling, the tires and everything they're selling is for the false enjoyment of living entity. The gas also, and they make it a little bit cheaper so people go in there and load up. Like you go, like for example, one man, his wife told him, go to Costco and buy some bananas. They're on sale. So he goes to Costco, he walks in, but of course the food is way in the back, right? So you have to walk through the whole store to get to the food, right? By the time he got to the bananas, he forgot about the bananas, and he bought a television, a rake, a new watch, and a whole bunch of things. He goes home, and the wife said, okay, did you get the bananas? He said, oh, I forgot. But I got a television, and I got a rake, and I got this, and I got that, right? So this is what's going on. You go to Costco, you spend much more money than you expected. But, you think, oh, no, I saved money because I bought all these things a little bit cheaper. But actually, you spent much more money than you were going to spend. Is this right, Prabhu? You see, and it's all psychologically planned. They plan it psychologically. It's like the same thing in a casino. The casino will give you free money. They'll give you free food. They'll give you free tickets to fly to Las Vegas from Seattle. They give you everything free to get you into the casino. Once you're in the casino, you give it all back to them and more. They don't lose money by giving away money. They make more money by doing it. See? Yeah, so you have to walk around and see more things. You see, it's all psychologically planned. And we are like lemmings walking in there. Haribol. Okay, we'll stop right there. See, this is a very important purport. There's a lot to say about it still. But what we're seeing today is explained by this purport. That's what's amazing. Right? If you can't connect this to what you're seeing, then it doesn't have any meaning. But once you see correctly what's going on outside, then you can understand what's being explained here. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Yeah, yeah. The more advances, the more crap there is to buy. Right? The more things they're making. Every day they're coming out with new products, right? And you have to ask yourself, why are they doing it? They're doing it for sense gratification. It's the extension of the false ego.
Amazing. Bhagavatam exposes everything.
Yeah, but you got to be able to correlate it. If you can't correlate this to what you're seeing, then it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Without vision of devotee, without being engaged in devotional service, you can't see.
No, you would not see. You would not understand. You just go along like a lemming, walking into Costco and get mesmerized by it. You ever see people shop? Just watch the people shopping in Costco. It's madness.
Very